Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Julie the Knitter podcast. This is a podcast mainly about knitting and whatever crafty bits I happen to be getting myself into during the week. I am coming to you live from Queens, New York, where I live with my handsome husband, my two crazy kids, and my wild beast of a dog who is currently trying to get into my lap. So, hi. Welcome back to anyone who is returning to us, and I am glad to know that anybody new is here and checking this out. So I hope you like what you see. And here we go. So I have just a few things to show you guys this week. The last time we spoke, I was working on the, excuse me. I know. Okay, go on to bed. I love you too. Go on. Down you go. Go to bed. Bed. Last time we spoke, I was working on the cereal socks for my husband for Christmas. And these are a pattern by Little Bobbins of Little Bobbins Knits. I believe her real name is Danny George. But the pattern was released in like a group of 3 patterns that were all inspired by her engagement ring. And they are all gorgeous patterns, and I've been meaning to knit them up for eons. And I knew that once this pattern, the cereal pattern, was released, I wanted to make it for my husband. I just hadn't gotten around to it. And I am so glad that I finally did, because it was such a pleasure to knit. The yarn that I used is the owl base, the new owl base. I'm sorry, I got the light behind me, so I don't know how well you're going to be able to see the color. But it's the new owl base from Sparrow Yarns, and it is a yak merino blend, and it's really, really soft, and it was really nice to work with. I don't have the tag right now, so I can't tell you what the colorway name is off the top of my head, but I will try to put it in the notes down below in the description box. But it's kind of like this dark slate gray, and the pattern itself, it's ribbed, and it's got like these little twisted stitches every few rows that create almost like a rounded square. So it's like a nice little, you can kind of see that's the color showing off kind of well there. But it's, I don't know, it's just nice, and it goes all the way down the leg and the top of the foot. There was an eye of partridge heel, which I love, a good eye of partridge heel, and I especially love a good yarn that's going to show it off, because sometimes I feel that if the yarn is not tightly spun enough, or if it's too busy a yarn, it kind of gets lost. So the difference, it's a slip stitch heel flap like I tend to do, but instead of doing like knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one, and then purl all the way back, it's knit one, slip one row, you purl the way back, and then it's like knit one, slip one, knit one, and it just kind of alternates. So you get like this little, let's see if you can see, this little diamond action going there on the back, and it's just pretty. But I like, it's still a slip stitch heel, so you still have the sturdiness, I feel, that double layer of protection in a spot that gets a lot of wear. It was a rounded toe. I think the only thing I changed about this pattern was I decreased a little bit more before I grafted the toe, and I think the last row before you start the toe, I just couldn't get my head around what the directions were trying to tell you to do, so I didn't do it. And I kind of just went into my regular rounded toe that I would do. There's 1 sock, and there is 2 socks. So that is now 3 pairs of socks that are done for my Christmas knitting. I know I showed you my son's socks last week. However, I still have, I did weave in some of the ends. One of the socks has the ends woven in. They haven't been blocked yet. I had to finish weaving in the ends in the other sock. Once they are woven in and they're blocked, I'll show you the finished product. But as much as I love the look of contrasting heels and cuffs and toes, I don't love weaving in all the ends. So it's been taking its sweet time getting done. But I did do one of the socks yesterday. So And I started the second sock. In fact, I probably have them in my bag here. Yes, I do. See, one is all done. Ends are all woven. The other is not. So all these still have to get done. But I'll show you them quick. I'm not going to talk too much about them because I talked a bit about them in the last episode, and once they are completely done, woven and blocked, etc., I will give you the real big picture of them. But you know, my Christmas knitting is coming along, and it's only halfway through October. Excuse me, I've had a little bit of a cold this past weekend, so I apologize if I'm a little sniffly during this episode. But so be it. It's the time of year. Then I cast on another project because I need something else to work on. I was feeling like I was doing a lot for everybody else and I needed something for me. So I was doing all this Christmas knitting, I guess, and I had to cast on a little bit of selfish knitting for myself. So I cast on the Into the Woods pattern by Melody of Bee Mandarins, and this pattern is gorgeous. It's a fairly new pattern. I think it just came out recently, in the last few weeks to months, not very long ago. But I love it. I just finished them. I blocked them yesterday, so I wove in all the ends yesterday and I blocked them. But I knit the socks up out of, I have my tag in here somewhere. It is yarn by StressKnits in her smooth base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon base in her All Is Calm colorway. This was part of her advent calendar last year, and it's this real pale green. It reminds me of, do you remember when we were kids and if something like glowed in the dark, it was that really, really light green? You can kind of tell that it was supposed to glow in the dark. It wasn't quite white, but it had that green tint to it. That's kind of like the base of this color. It's just slightly green. It's got all these little speckles of pinks and reds and blues and browns, and it's really nice. I had never worked with StressKnits Yarns before. And the pattern is cute. It's got a nice twisted rib cuff, and it's got this, I really enjoyed knitting this. I don't know how to describe it. You kind of pick up a stitch a few rows below and work the yarn through, and it looks like little Christmas trees all around. And there's a nice slip stitch cuff with a garter row, which was nice. I don't think I've ever done that detail on a slip stitch yet. That gives a nice little something, keeps it interesting. It had a round wedge toe, so I have just a straightforward, decrease every other row here, and it was nice. So I just blocked those yesterday, little Christmas trees, and I got 2, and it was such a pleasure to knit this pattern. I love Melody's patterns. There's something so simple yet beautiful about them. I don't know, I just love them. But I never seem to knit them. So I think this may be the first pattern that I have knit of hers, even though I've been ogling them forever. I could be wrong. I may have knit other things by her. I can't remember. I'm telling you, my head's too full of snot to remember much today. But that's those. That is my second finished object for today. But I needed something else to cast on. So I cast on the newly released Baudelaire top, which is a pattern by Shenanigans on Ravelry. What is her real name? Melissa Alexander Loomis. But it's a pattern that is inspired by the Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events, and it is, Baudelaire's are the very unfortunate children in those stories, but it's a cute story. I haven't read them, but I watched the Netflix series mostly, but my daughter is really into it. So I'm actually knitting this top for my daughter. I just found it charming. So it's this little crop top, and it has the option to do the cap sleeves or 3/4 length sleeves, and has a detachable Peter Pan collar that you attach with a ribbon. And if you are familiar with the series, the older daughter of the Baudelaire children, when she has an idea or when she's thinking, she ties her hair back with ribbon. So this Peter Pan collar is detachable and attached with a ribbon. So I just found that charming. So I am knitting this up with some yarn by Once Upon a Corgi in her Isaac base, which is 100% superwash Polworth, and you get 437 yards per 100 grams. And the colorways I'm using are Hearth, which is this golden brown, but it's got some it's coming off a little bit brighter on camera. It's a little bit darker, but it's got dark browns and caramel highlights in there, and it's maybe that's a good depiction. And then the collar is going to be in this contrasting Ravishing, which is also coming off much more reddish here. It's more of a burgundy maroon color, but together they look really nice. And so it's a top-down raglan top. I'm going to do the 3/4 length sleeves, I believe. Since I'm knitting this for my daughter, it is a crop top. I'm not going to be knitting it as a crop top. I believe, looking at the measurements, the size that I'm knitting, which is the second size, which is a little bit bigger than her measurements. Her measurements are just about the smallest size exactly, but I want to work in a little bit of positive ease. So this way she's got a little bit of room to grow, because 11-year-old girls, they are growing and there's a lot of changes going on. So I just wanted to be able to have a little room in there, and this way she gets a little bit more use out of it too. But also the length of it, so I measured from her shoulders to about her hips, is about the same length as the second size. I may lengthen it slightly. I'm going to see where I'm at yarn wise with the sleeves, and then lengthening also. But that is my plan. Where am I at? I'm working on this pattern, and it's a really cleverly put together pattern. The only thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't really tell you when to change needle sizes. I mean, it's with most sweater patterns, you use a smaller needle size for the ribbing at the neck and the cuffs and the bottom band, and that's fine. And it says under materials that use the bigger needle for this and the second smaller needle for this, but it doesn't say it in the pattern itself, when you're doing it, switch needle size here. And then with the short rows, which I read it before I started working on it, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together that I was supposed to do this technique when I came to them. It uses the Westknits shortcut rows, and you're supposed to pick up a stitch to close the gap, and I didn't realize I was supposed to do that there. So I would have liked to have that kind of in the pattern while you're working it. But what is nice about this pattern is, one, it is incredibly size inclusive. It goes from a size 30-inch bust all the way up to a 66-inch bust, which is pretty good, I think. And it really breaks it down in terms of all these different measurements: bust circumference, neckline circumference, sleeve, waist, length, etc. There's a separate attachment for if you need to do a full bust adjustment. So if you are a chestier person, I think it says larger than a D cup, you could use this set of instructions to modify it to get a better fit. There's also, I think, a modification for the sleeves. thought that was fantastic. You don't get all that very often. But what I also thought was kind of clever, let's see if I can show you this without giving too much away of the secret sauce. You know, when you're working on a paper pattern, I tend not to read a pattern off of a device, like electronically. I know a lot of people do. It just drives me crazy. I print it out and I write down my notes, and when you'd have to repeat something 6 times, I do, you know, 1, 2, I'd have my tick boxes and stuff. It's got little boxes, and you can kind of, for all the different sizes, there's, I don't know. So 1 and 2, you repeat these so many times. And, you know, it's all the ones for like the biggest size. I only had to do 6 here. But I thought it was really cool. Like, instead of having to write it down, it's just something you could check off. It's got little dots next to each step. I don't know why this isn't focusing. I'm sorry. It's focusing on me. I don't know. But it's got little dots next to each step, so you can kind of keep track of where you are. I just thought that was so clever. But otherwise, you know, it's a really clearly written pattern, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm not too far into it. Where am I? I'm a little backwards here. I'm just starting the lower yoke of the pattern. So it's where we're starting to add the sleeve increases, and eventually we'll start splitting for the sleeves afterwards, and then working down to the main body. So this is where I'm at. I'm using a smaller cable than I normally do, only because I can't seem to find any of my other size 6 needles. I am knitting this on a size 6 and a size 4 for the ribbing. But here it is knit up. And it's just a nice color. Again, it's coming off a lot warmer on camera than it is. But here's my neckline. Here's my beginning of round. I'm kind of in the middle of a round, but I can't really stretch it out too much because I don't have much needle left to show you. But this is the center back, which is the beginning of the row, and we're going to start really increasing for sleeves here and here. And here you go. I started that yesterday. And it's just been moving along fairly quickly. Fingering weight on size 6s tends to do that, and you know, it's nothing really complicated, so it's very potato chippy, especially since, okay, repeat, you know, these 2 rounds 6 times and get these. I did find that my stitch counts were always like 1 repeat over than what the pattern called for. So that's happened to me a few times. So I don't know if it's a mistake in the pattern or just the fact that I was making a mistake. But there were a few times where I had to kind of go back and like get rid of an increase somewhere. So that's that. Working on that. That is going to be for Christmas. In terms of other Christmas knitting goes, I do plan on knitting a hat for my son, because the hat that I have knit for him that he's been doing well with for the last few years, I think is not going to cut it this year. So that's my plan. The last time we spoke, I had been working on gauge swatches for the Sold.NA crop. I'm not sure if I'm going to cast it on. One, I was having a really hard time getting gauge, and I think I went up, I didn't measure the size 7 needle gauge, which was like 2 needle sizes up, but I was getting a really loose fabric with it, and I wasn't crazy about the look of that. So I might have to go down, you know, work a different needle size and work a different gauge on it. I don't know. But also, Caitlin Hunter, who designs the pattern, her behavior with regards to being an inclusive designer, and just, I don't know if I really feel comfortable casting on the pattern. I don't know. Her behavior hasn't given me the warm and fuzzies. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to say who's right and wrong. but I don't know if I feel comfortable supporting somebody who acted the way she has in the last few weeks. And so I don't think I'm going to be casting on the pattern. I mean, I have the pattern already, it's already bought. I have the yarn, it's already purchased. I may find a different pattern to cast on or do something else with it. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know how I feel about supporting that. So that's that. Other than that, I have been working on my granny stripe blanket. I could show you that. I've got a little bit to go. I don't know if it's just the change in weather, the fact that it's finally feeling fallish, autumnal around here in New York. But I have really been reaching for this blanket a lot in the last few weeks. I think part of that was because, I do tend to knit at night in the evening, after the kids go to bed, while my husband and I are watching TV, and I couldn't work on his Christmas socks while he's sitting right there, so I needed something else to work on. And, I could have cast something else on in the meantime, but I wasn't there. So I've been working on my granny stripe blanket and giving it some love. So I'm going to have this folded in half because it's just massive. It is wide enough to fit on my queen size. So this is half. Half doesn't even fit in the camera. There we go. So that's half. So last time we spoke, I think I was working on this red stripe here, which was left over from my threshold blanket, and I put about, I would say maybe 4 inches since then, and that's 4 inches across all this. It's quite a bit, but it's been nice. It's been such a pleasure because I don't have to work. I don't have to think too much when I do it. I'm just what color am I going to throw on next? That's about it. I like to wind up a few minis and throw them in my bag of scraps, and I just grab one and I pop it on next. So I am, or whatever scraps I have left over from the project that I'm on. I find that when I finish a pair of socks, I tend to have a little bit too much left over, so I'm trying to, repurpose that first before I put it into the blanket. I cast on a pair of socks with it for my son, because I could probably I know with a pair of my socks, I could definitely get a pair of socks for him out of the same skein. I think if I use contrasting cuffs, toes, and heels, I could probably get an extra pair out of my husband's socks, the skein that I did for my husband's socks. Maybe. Probably have to go toe up so I know so I have a foot. I don't know. I don't love doing toe up. It's not as, I just don't do it as often, so it's not that it's more difficult. I just have to think about it more, and I don't always want to do that when I'm working on socks. So we'll see. We'll see, but that's where I'm at. So I've been loving this, and it is, it's getting long. So this is the bottom here. As you can see, I didn't leave in ends on the bottom, and I eventually switched to doing I think it's a Russian join, where you, that's the word that I'm looking for, you kind of do a magic knot, and so there's not really any ends to weave in, which is so nice. I will eventually have to go back and weave in all these ends, or at least trim them and figure something out, but that's that. So I'll show you from here. This is the beginning. This goes on and on. So there's some little stripes, there's some bigger stripes. This looks like one big stripe, but it's just 2 different colors that are right next to each other. And that just happened to make it look like a big stripe. Wasn't thinking too well there, was I? But there you go. And just leftovers and minis and stuff like that. So I've really been enjoying working on that. And that's that. We have been loving the fact that the fall weather is finally here. It's finally cooling off here in New York, because we have had quite a bit of warm weather up until like the last week or two. We still had 80-degree weather, and that's hot. But I think those days are behind us for the year, and I am happy about that. I like fall weather. But that's about it. That's about all I've got knitting wise, crochet wise, I know next weekend is Rhinebeck. I am not 100% certain whether I'm going or not. I probably will, but I'm not sure. I want to see how a bunch of things work out around here before I go up. Usually when I go up to my parents for the weekend. They're about an hour north of them, and I usually go down to the festival on Saturday. So if you are around and you see me, say hello and I will say hello back. If I go, I think my mom's going to be joining us, and I'll have my 2 crazy kids with me, and I will probably be losing my mind a little bit because I love Rhinebeck and my kids love Rhinebeck, and sometimes, especially with my son who does not want to be in a stroller any longer, it's a long day. So we'll see how it goes. So maybe I'll see you guys there. Keep an eye on my Instagram page because I'll probably make an announcement later on this week whether I am definitely going up. And that's it. Maybe I'll see you guys all there. Bye-bye.